The Atlantic hurricane season officially begins this weekend, with forecasters predicting at least 13 named storms and up to 5 major hurricanes. But there's a bigger problem. The U.S. Disaster Response Agency is running out of money. That agency is facing a $5 billion shortfall and could run completely dry by July or August. The Trump administration wants to downsize it and make it even more difficult for states to qualify for emergency aid. Earlier this month, officials shut down the U.S. Weather Agency's disaster tracking database, making it even tougher for insurers to assess storm damage. A lot to talk about. So for what we can expect on this hurricane season, we're now joined by Daniel Kreeger. Daniel's the executive director and co-founder of the Association of Climate Change Officers. Daniel, thanks for talking to us. Very important topic, and kind of want to get right to it. Authorities are telling people who live along the coast that there's a 70% chance this will be an above active hurricane season. One could make a very strong argument with Trump slashing budgets. The U.S. just isn't prepared.
Yeah, that's spot on. You would already have some challenges with a change of administration. You've got a whole new leadership regime coming in. But you add that to the impacts of the massive slashes in personnel and an effort to really dismantle substantial programs and resources. And you're basically saying that states and local governments are going to be on their own.
You know, when we were talking about the emergency agent, we're talking about FEMA. And this is also the 20th year of Katrina. We're seeing some pictures of that hideous hurricane from 20 years ago. So what happens if FEMA runs out of disaster relief funds right in the middle of hurricane season? Because we all know that later in the year, September is usually the worst month.
Yeah, well, so first of all, the Government Accountability Office has been reporting for years that this was a risk that we were going to be dealing with. This is not news. The reality is the magnitude and the impact of these events that have been happening for well more than a decade now exceed what we can cover. And so the reality is that when these events hit, you know, the billions and tens of billions of dollars of damage, these areas that get hit, they don't get 100 cents on the dollar back. They never have. Now that is going to be made worse. They're going to be getting fewer cents on the dollar back than they've been getting in the past. And rebuild, like we see in North Carolina from the event, you know, from the flood event a year or two ago, is going to be slow, if at all.
Yeah, Trump went to Appalachia when he was running for office in North Carolina mountains, what you're talking about, telling residents that were affected by Hurricane Helene last year that the Biden administration failed him, that they just weren't there. Now, 2 days ago, Trump, his agency, his administration denying emergency funds to that region, saying, quote, major disaster declaration is not warranted here. How does that make people feel right now?
Well, I got to think that they're despondent, and there's been a cry for help, a plea for help for years in rural America, even notwithstanding this storm, that has been left behind, with infrastructure modernization and resilience efforts taking place in more urban areas, not in rural areas. This just makes it worse.
Okay, let's talk specifically about the administration's plan to get rid of FEMA. Where does that stand? And give me your best case and worst case scenario for the way this is going to play out in 2025.
Well, there's certainly an enormous amount of damage from the cuts that have already been made. We've lost an enormous amount of institutional knowledge, of tools and resources that are vital for, as you said earlier, insurance companies, for local planners, for state emergency management leaders and such. That said, I don't know if it's going to be as simple as just saying we're getting rid of FEMA. There are programs and policies that were put into place by Congress, and can't simply just dismantle them from the executive branch. And I think that DOGE and Elon Musk and the Trump administration have learned that maybe those cuts are not as easy as they thought. That said, what has already been done has been incredibly crippling.
Okay, and we're also looking at the impact of NOAA, stopping the cost tracking of climate-related disasters, remembering that this is an administration that says there's no such thing as climate change.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to pretend like the floods, the hurricanes, the derechos, the wildfires, which are currently happening in Canada and pushing smoke in our direction and are going to be happening through the summer here in the United States aren't happening. The reality is the costs are going to be borne at the local level. As they say, politics is felt locally. Well, so are disaster events. I mean, the real ramifications are felt by local businesses, by local governments, by the communities. And I've said for years, if you think that Uncle Sam is going to come and bail you out every time these things happen, there's not enough resources, and now there's also not the will.
Daniel, we got about 30 seconds left. Tell me what you think this year is going to be like.
Hot, extreme, really scary. And I would say to people now, put together your personal, your business resilience, your community resilience plans. If you haven't already, you need to be leveling that up immediately.
Okay, Daniel Kreeger, very thankful for the sobering information. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.